Here we go. It's a new year. 2024 has arrived, believe it or not. And I feel like this time of year, the beginning of the year, January, can come along with a lot of different emotions. Either you're on this side of the spectrum where you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited for the new year. This and this and this is happening, and like, let's get going. I'm ready to set goals. I'm ready to make changes, blah, blah, blah. Or you could be on this end of the spectrum and just be completely uninspired, not into it, resentful over the fact that maybe you didn't hit the goals that you set last year. Just generally not energized to make any changes, because what's the point? I've personally hit all ranges of those throughout the last week as I've been thinking about what I really want 2024 to look like. So where does that leave me for 2024 goal setting? Because I feel like I always have some sort of plan. This year, I just even feel like at this point in January, I am not ready to make New Year's goals, and I think that's okay. However, even though I'm not ready right now, it doesn't mean that I'm not determined to make some changes and shifts in my life this year. And I think what I'm really making time for is space for me to get clear on what that vision is, making time for intentional planning out of directions I want to go in with my personal life, with my career, with hobbies. I think that is so important, because otherwise, if you're not intentional, there's a lot of room for just fluff. And I'm all for going with the flow. You know, some of the most spontaneous things, like if, for example, my decision to start crocheting in 2023 has led to like really grand joy. I'm really happy that I found that hobby just miraculously, and I just kind of went with it because it was something I felt inspired to do at the time. So there's definitely space for that. But for me, I always feel like there's peace in knowing I am working towards something. So I may be saying no to New Year's resolutions, but I am definitely not saying no to growth and changes and working on myself. It's just gonna look a little bit differently this year, and I thought I'd go through my thought process on how it might look. A major inspiration, I think, for my change in approach to 2024 is the fact that I started reading a really interesting book in 2023 that I plan to finish in January. That's one of my small mini micro goals that I want to do. And that book is called The 12-Week Year. The book argues that you can be more productive by breaking down the year into 12-week periods where you have very specific goals for those 12 weeks than you would if you started the year and set a 2024 goal and just tried to work towards these big ideas that you have in mind in January all the way till December. Setting goals at the beginning of the year can be overwhelming. There's like that famous Tony Robbins quote too that I think he says, people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. I always keep that quote in mind too when thinking of goal setting, because it's great to set big goals, but you also want them to be achievable, and you want to be able to see progress and measure them and actually be validated along the way, or else you can be discouraged. So I think that's always important to keep in mind. But aside from the fact that like it can be overwhelming to figure out, okay, what is that goal that I'm working towards for this entire 12 months? Whereas on the flip side, just thinking for something to work on for the next 12 weeks feels like a less strenuous task. The book also makes the point of the fact that when we set New Year goals that we want to achieve by December 31st, 2024, it gives us too much time to achieve that goal. And if we have too much time, there's more opportunity for us to be unfocused. There's more opportunity for us to say, well, I'm just gonna skip this week, or it's okay if I don't get to it today because I still have so many days to make progress on this goal. And then all of a sudden you find yourself trying to catch up at the end of the year, if that. And because you're doing weekly check-ins, then there's more accountability versus, you know, when you're goal setting for the year, you might hopefully have like semi-annual or quarter annual check-ins, but there's still less space in there for procrastination, for distraction. And I have done a element of this with my year goals. I've always been a firm believer in breaking them down. I remember in Atomic Habits by James Clear, I took so much from that book. It's one of those books that has stayed with me since I read it. And one of the things he talks about is really breaking goals down into small chunks, achievable habits that you can do daily. So I've had that philosophy with goal setting, but I think the shift in saying, no, this isn't just me breaking down steps to my big goal. I'm actually trying to figure out what I'm working towards in this short time period. It frees up all this mental space where you don't have to have these expectations or worries about like the next step and the next step and the next step. My only job is to worry about my mission for the next 12 weeks. And I like that approach. So I plan to finish this book by January 31st, 2024, because I'm getting to the part where it talks about the specifics and how setting up this 12-week year looks like. My first 12-week chunk is probably going to be spent on getting clear on my vision and figuring out what are the things I can do to get some clarity with what I want in all categories of my life. Obviously, I don't need to have all the answers, but I feel like I've been more in do and action mode rather than sitting back and reflecting and thinking and making time for things that help fuel that. Like, one of the things I haven't done in a bit is update my vision board. I'm trying to think, did I update it at the beginning of my year last year? I don't see it, it's kind of off camera. It's kind of falling apart right now. It needs some TLC. So I think that would be a helpful activity. Journaling is also a helpful activity. Consuming content from other creatives and seeing how they view life. You can't get to where you want to go without knowing where you want to go. You know, you can't start a GPS with directions to nowhere. So you kind of have to give it some sort of like give or take idea of where the general direction is. That's going to be my approach to 2024 goal setting. And I think this is a reminder too that, you know, you don't have to set goals at the beginning of the year for them to be valid or to feel like you are doing life right. Some years I'm feeling inspired to do that. Some years, like this year, I'm not in that place, and it's okay. There is time throughout the whole year to get to that. You can start a goal on December 1st or September 2nd. Personally, like, my energy is needing to be split a little bit more right now in this season of life because there are other people that need me a little bit more right now, and you know, that's okay. So if that's the reality of the situation, then I want to give myself grace to make the goals and to make progress for myself, but also work within the chaos of life. One of the intentions I am very clear on for 2024 though is I do want to return to journaling. So if you've been on this channel for a while, then you know that for years I was a bullet journaler, and I made videos every month showing you my bullet journal spreads where I drew things like monthly spreads, like month at a glances, and weekly layouts so that I could plan out my week in a really technical way. But I also did lots of spreads for self-care and finance tracking and habit tracking and quotes and reading logs. It allowed me to connect really with my inner self quite a bit. But then in 2022, 2023, I took a step back from bullet journaling because I really wanted to explore some other methods of planning. And although I'm not feeling desired right now to return to bullet journaling in the sense of using this as a tool for productivity or planning out my workday, like, that's not the type of journaling I'm really feeling guided to do. I'm feeling really strong about dialing in on journaling for my soul. And for me, that really means setting aside time daily to get out this onto paper, whether that's through writing or through doodling or printing out photos that inspire me or ripping things out of magazines. Although who reads magazines these days? I mean, if you do read magazines, kudos to you. Let me know if there's a good magazine that I'm missing out on. But I think just like really documenting my mental space, because I do think when you are going through like uncertain times, it's so helpful to get that off onto paper. And over the last like few weeks, I started journaling again in that way. And it is crazy how like therapeutic it feels, how cathartic it feels to get so much of the things that are in your head out onto paper without, you know, having to worry about if what you're saying is right, if what you're saying is gonna make you look likable, if these thoughts are sad or happy or excited or ego-filled or really self-deprecating. Like, you know, they range in all the emotions, but you don't have to audit yourself when you are truly giving yourself permission to just let it all out. And in fact, I find it just such a calming experience to get that out so that it's not trapped in my body, you know? So I really want to get back into this routine. I've started it already, but that is something that I feel like is not just going to be helpful in being like a therapeutic tool in my life, but also in helping facilitate some of that that vision planning, right? Because sometimes when you read back your thoughts, like, you see things, patterns that you didn't realize might have been there when you're just living in them, sometimes going back to them, which is one of the joys of documenting things, whether it's on camera like I do here on YouTube or documenting things in a more written form like journaling, is you get to return back to these moments and assess them and reflect on them in a different way, as a different you, a more evolved you from that moment. And I have missed that experience in my life. So I think returning to journaling is going to be a huge one. And I'd probably like to make a video about that in a little bit more detail. I'm also curious to know, like, have you journaled in that way before? Like not a planner bullet journal style, but more of a reflection of your soul type of way. That sounds very heavy, oh my goodness. But you kind of get what I mean. Like, are you a journaler, like brain dumper, self-reflection, question answer kind of thing? Another thing that I'm not really waiting for is daily consistency with my movement routine and my meditation routine. I've been really loving the Calm app this year. The Daily Calm, 10-minute Daily Calm is something that I really enjoy, but I also love Insight Timer and meditations on YouTube, on Apple Fitness. Like, there's so many places now where you can get really great meditation practices, guided meditation practices. And I read a book this year, again, still reading it, but I'm really close to finishing it, called Full Catastrophe Living, which is all about the concept of mindfulness. It's actually written by the creator of the mindfulness program. It is so fascinating and so informative and detailed into the power of thought and the power of taking time to stop time and just focus on your breath. It's so like validating as a book. It kind of just confirms so many things I've known in my heart, but just seeing it in a really technical, sciencey way just makes me feel like, oh, okay, good. Like, these things, this practice is helping, and it actually has evidence of it helping other people too. But just like a warning, because it is quite dense too. Like it's a lot of information thrown at you on this one topic. But yeah, meditation is one of those things that continues to be something I really prioritize in my life, in addition to movement, which I always love reconnecting with my relationship with movement every year in January with the 30 days of yoga challenge that Adrienne does on her YouTube channel, Yoga with Adrienne. Every time I do that journey and I hit the end, I just feel so proud of myself, even though I've done it in previous years and you think it's not as impressive to do it another year. It's still impressive to yourself or to myself, because yes, the program and how it's set up is the same, but the practices are different and you are different every time that you show up to the mat. It always feels so gratifying to reach the end and to make time for that. I think I'm surprised by how good I'm feeling about the fact that I don't have my whole plan figured out for the year. I'm being self-compassionate over the fact that I need some more time, and that's okay. And I think a big part of the reason why I wanted to film this video today is to let you know that if you're kind of in that headspace too, welcome to the club. I'm right there with you. Genuinely would love to know, what is your thoughts on New Year's resolutions, on New Year's goals? Do you have any? What are they, if you feel comfortable sharing that? And or what is your general approach to goal setting at any point of the year, not just in January? And please don't feel like if you are a lover of New Year's resolutions, or you are really excited about goal setting this year, that in no way that you should feel like you have to diminish that. I think that's awesome if you're in that space this year. I hate it when people get like really pessimistic about New Year's resolutions in general, because even though like I really tried to make a point in this video to say, hey, you don't have to do this in January for it to be valid, sometimes those time pushes like New Year's resolutions or the start of a new school year, that September fresh beginning feel of fall, is also like a great way of nature providing an opportunity for you to feel like more inspired to make those changes at that time of year. So, you know, like whatever's floating your boat, that's amazing. But yeah, all that's to say, 2024, here we go. We're gonna learn a lot. We're gonna get through all the ups and the downs, and magic will happen. That I have no doubt. I'll see you all soon with a new one, and until then, ciao, ciao.